Hey cousins, happy Tuesday. Today is not your typical episode because I will be demanding justice for Joe Biden, of all people. If you have not yet heard the news, Joe Biden has unfortunately been diagnosed with severe, largely progressed prostate cancer that has already entered his bones. To anyone that has remotely paid attention or any attention at all, it has been obvious for some time that Joe Biden has been unwell, yet mainstream media gaslighted us for years, saying that we were crazy and that we were being propagators of ageism. Now we know Joe Biden is very sick, and you cannot convince me that the left did not already know. So today we're taking a closer look at the signs that were always there, and I simply ask for all of you to keep it classy in the comments. This is not a space to wish bad health upon anyone, and certainly not for fatality. I'm a Christian, and I will not be going to hell with y'all. So y'all know the vibes. Be sure to like, comment, share, subscribe, and send in your super chats. Welcome to Respectfully. Wow, the fall of Joe Biden is definitely something to be studied and will be studied in the history books. You know, I want to show a visual representation first of what that has looked like.
We have the most productive workers in the world. And given a fair shot, given a fair chance, Americans have never, ever, ever, ever let their country down.
Our military is working. I'm following the advice of my commander-in-chief, the chief of staff of the military, as well as the Secretary of Defense and our intelligence people.
We've had candidates before who attempted to get elected by appealing to our fears, but they've never succeeded because we do not scare easily. We never bow. We never bend. We never break when confronted with crisis. No, we endure, we overcome, and we always, always, always move forward.
And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin.
President Putin
is crazy.
He's going to beat President Putin. President Zelensky.
Mind you, that was at the height of their war, and he confused the two. That was crazy. And, you know, when you see, I want you guys to see, like, that was not that far apart. You know, it's one thing to age. It's obvious that aging, some of that starts to happen. And, like, some of the forgetfulness and the stumbling on words and all that tends to happen. But what happened here is much more than just aging. This is someone that has been unwell. This is someone that has been losing their minds. And now this is clear, or it is clear that he was actually sick. Joe Biden just announced, you know, on his Twitter about having the cancer. And, you know, it's really heartbreaking to see. This was the formal announcement that he and Joe posted together about him having cancer. It is stage, let me see this breakdown. Where I have it written out, because it's like all kinds of details on here. But basically he has the how do you say it? Mr. Rodriguez, how do you pronounce it? Metastasized. The cancer has metastasized into his bones, which means that he has had this for quite some time. He has Gleason level 9 cancer, which is very far progressed, but he has been unwell for quite some time. And what makes me so irritated is the fact that, again, the left tried to act like he was not unwell. The left has propped this man up for all this time, acting like he was healthy as he possibly could be. And this audio actually just leaked. There was a full version of it where he was talking to Robert Hur, who is a former U.S. attorney and special counsel appointed to investigate President Biden's handling of classified documents. And when he was sitting down with Joe Biden, he really tried to make it seem like Joe Biden was just this old man who was a little forgetful. But it definitely goes much further and deeper than that, especially now that we're seeing this full audio.
And so what was happening, though, month ago dying, May 30th, 2018. Was it 2015 he had died?
2015.
I think it's 2015.
I'm not sure the months are, but I think that was That's right, Mr. President.
And what's happened in the meantime is that Trump gets elected in November of 2017? 2016. All right. So, why do I have 2017 here?
That's when you left office, January of 2017.
Yeah, okay.
So this was just in 2014. This is while Joe Biden was still president. He not only cannot remember when his son died, he's struggling to remember the month, let alone the year. And then he confuses the year that his son died, which was 2 years before he left office, which he couldn't even tell when he left office versus when Trump won the presidency. Like, he's all over the place. And in this 2014 report that Hur did, he says that there was no criminal charges found and that he described Biden as sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. Okay, even if that's where we were leaving the conversation, that's not someone that should be our president. The president of the United States, the commander in chief of our army or our military, should not be described as a sympathetic, well-meaning elderly man with poor memory. That is wild. And what's even crazier is that Robert Hur, he got all of these attacks from the left when he initially even said that statement. But now, in retrospect, now that we've seen the full audio, we're able to see that, if anything, he was trying to protect Joe Biden's image. He was trying to soften the blow and delicately tell us the fact that Joe Biden has lost his mind. Joe Biden is not well. But again, he got all this shade and all this hate back when Axios initially leaked the audio. He leaked a little bit of audio back in October 2023 was when they did this. And it revealed that he had the memory lapse and that he had the long pauses and the difficulty recalling any key details. And it's just so crazy to me that the Biden administration just went and blocked the audio from being released, saying that it was executive privilege before we got a little bit of the transcript back in March of 2024. So this being said, they have known that he was senile for a while and have been taking these extra measures to cover it up while condemning anyone that would even touch lightly on the fact that Joe Biden's mind was not there. Okay, and now that Joe Biden has publicly said that he is sick, of course, conservatives have been, for the most part, very mindful of that fact. Like I said in the beginning of the show, keep it cute in the comments. Don't come in here wishing negativity upon this elderly sick man, okay? We can talk all day long and will about how much we can't stand what he did as president, but we're not going to sit here and wish bad health upon anyone. But yet the left is still trying to condemn the right as if the popular narrative on the right is people celebrating that he is sick. That is not the case. But look what they have to say.
My expectation that President Biden is going to meet this moment with the courage and resilience that he's consistently shown. Seems to me entirely inappropriate that at this moment in time, when President Biden is dealing with a serious and aggressive form of cancer, there are Republicans who are peddling conspiracy theories and want us to look backward at a time when they actually are taking health care away from the American people. No, as House Democrats, we're going to look forward. They literally are trying to take health care away from millions of Americans at this very moment in the dead of night. And Republicans want to fan the flames of conspiracy theories at this moment? No, thank you.
See, this is the clownery that I cannot stand. What do you mean conspiracy theory? When he's saying this conspiracy theory, what he's saying is that how dare us on the right point out the fact that the left has likely known about Joe Biden being unwell for so long. It's obvious. And when we have these audio leaks, like President Biden sitting down with Robert Hur, and it's very clear that he is not mentally competent, and you cover that up and try to say it's executive privilege for anyone to actually hear the audio, you already knew the condition that he was in, okay? And that's before we even get to the full details of the cancer. That's just saying from a mental state, from a cognitive ability state, that is where he has already been. And I have not seen any, mainstream right-wing figures saying anything overly distasteful about this situation, as they shouldn't. Keep it cute, okay? Even President Trump put out a nice message. So President Trump says, Melania and I are saddened to hear about Joe Biden's recent medical diagnosis. We extend our warmest and best wishes to Jill and the family, and we wish Joe a fast and successful recovery. Amen. Period. You don't have to do too much. Okay, cancer is not something to be played with. keep it cute. And y'all know how I can read that better now that I finally got some glasses. I sure did finally get some eyes because I was blind as a bat. That's why I had to put it on. I'm sitting here struggling to read my outline a second ago. I'm like, let me put these eyes back on. I didn't realize how blind I was until I got these. But anyway, back on topic. The left is over here attacking us, but it's just so ironic that the left wants to attack us for our response to Joe Biden finally announcing that he was sick. Where was this sympathy at all these years that Joe Biden has been up there being propped up like a puppet and sick? Okay? Forget about politics, just on a human level. I don't care how much you like his policies. You know what? You can't tell me there's not somebody else on the left wing that didn't have similar policies to him that you could have propped up. But they propped him up because he was so unwell that he was easier to manipulate, and you will not convince me otherwise. Okay? I don't believe for one moment that any of this is a new development. And as all of this was going on, I really want you guys to just go down memory lane with me. I want to make sure that when history books reflect on what the last decade has been like for us in America, in this ghetto time to be in America, I want people to know the way that we were lied to by politicians, by the media, by all these people who try to play in our faces, starting with this raggedy Native American wench, Elizabeth Warren.
Do you regret saying that President Biden had a mental acuity? He had a sharpness to him. You said that up until July of last year.
I said what I believe to be true.
And you think he was as sharp as you?
I said I had not seen
the shade of that
and I hadn't at that point.
You did not see any decline from 2024 Joe Biden to 2021 Joe Biden?
Not when I said that.
Alive from the pits of hell.
The thing is, he was sharp. He was on his feet. I saw him. Live event. I had meetings with him a couple of times.
Senator, on his feet is not praise. He can speak in sentences, is not praise.
Okay, this interviewer won me over.
Fair enough. Look.
I'm sorry, I dragged your middle part.
It is. The question is, what are we going to do now?
Okay.
Impeach him. That's what you could have done. Or, there is an amendment in the Constitution that does say that when the president is unhealthy and unwell, then maybe, just maybe, you should have him step down. That's the whole reason why we have a VP. Well, by the grace of God, we made it through that presidency without a certain Indian lady becoming the president. But all that to say, Elizabeth Warren wasn't the only one, okay? In fact, if you want to just go down memory lane of the receipts of how much they played in our face, here's a whole compilation of them lying to you.
Does the president have the stamina, physically and mentally, do you think, to continue on even after 2024?
Don, you're asking me this question. Oh my gosh, he's the president of the United States. I can't even keep up with it.
The most difficult part about a meeting with President Biden is preparing for it, because he is sharp, intensely probing, and detail-oriented and focused.
I can testify.
Pause real quick. I'm sorry. I'm already gagging
for the past few years.
First of all, I wanted to like Karine Jean-Pierre so bad because she's such a cute little chocolate strawberry shortcake, like a little Hershey Kiss. Like, she's up there with her little curls and stuff. But then she gets up there and sounded stupid. Like, getting up there and just letting the world know that she is a DEI hire. Like, that was just such a traumatic era. That was such a loss for Black culture. I wanted her to eat so bad. And then then you have them saying, oh, it takes so much to prepare for Joe Biden. You don't know what's coming from him. You know why? It's because when you listen to a Joe Biden speech, it's like your brain is experiencing dyslexia. Okay. However, it must be to have dyslexia reading that on paper. That is how it feels in my ear when I listen to a Joe Biden speech. Okay. It is severe. It is severe out here. Okay, let's play a couple more of this because I really want to hammer this home. I want y'all to see how they played in your faces for all these years.
Knowing him for 30 years. And I'm telling you, this guy's tough. He's smart. He's on his game.
Joe Biden has vision. He has knowledge. He has a strategic thinker.
What game do all
people play? The president is focused. He's detail-oriented. He's always thinking about the big picture.
He is engaging. He is capable. He has an incredible record as president.
And I'm often with him on foreign trips. He's at the top of his game.
So he has a vision. He has knowledge. He has judgment. He has a strategic thinking.
I met with the president, I don't know, 5 or 6 weeks ago, and he seemed fine to me.
I have complete confidence in the president. I have watched him expertly guide meetings of staff and cabinet members. I could not have more confidence in the president.
I would just tell you that I meet frequently with the president, and every single time I meet him, he is just fine.
But he is, again...
I can't listen to this wench again. I can't. Y'all get the point, okay? You get the point that they have played in our faces time and time again. And you know what? Shame on all of you. Shame on those of you who are, whether you're in office, whether you're a high-level, high-ranking official, whether you are someone in mainstream media, if you are anyone that was in close proximity to Joe Biden over the last 3-4 years and then sat there and lied in 4K saying that that man was competent, shame on you. Because you endangered our entire country. I mean, look at the results. America was doomed. America was literally hanging on by its lace front for years. We were getting snatched by the wig by every other nation on this planet. Okay, America was falling. We were crumbling, shocked in tears almost as a nation. Okay, and y'all tried to play in our faces. And Mr. Rodriguez says we have another clip with Megyn Kelly. I haven't seen this one.
You covered the Biden presidency aggressively throughout the 4 years, and you didn't cover mental acuity hardly at all. Ooh. I mean, time and time again, when issues came up, you seem to be running cover for the president.
I don't
you didn't seem
think
interested.
That's true.
Well, I mean, we'll start with the Laura Trump issue that you referred. Here it is. This happened in 2020.
One thing about
Joe
Megyn,
Biden, as we all know, has worked to overcome a stutter. How do you think it makes little kids with stutters feel when they see you make a comment like that?
First and foremost, I had no idea that Joe Biden ever suffered from a stutter. I think what we see on stage with Joe Biden is very clearly a cognitive decline.
Okay.
That's what I'm referring to. It makes me uncomfortable
you are
to
no
watch somebody on stage
this is so amazing.
You're trying to tell me that what I was suggesting was
I think that you were mocking his stutter. Yeah, I think you were mocking his stutter, and I think you have absolutely no standing to diagnose somebody's cognitive decline.
And it's very concerning to a lot of people that this could be the leader of the free world.
Okay.
That is all I'm saying. I genuinely feel sorry for Joe Biden.
I appreciate
she is
it.
so
I'm sure
skinny,
it was from a place
blonde,
of
and
concern.
powerful.
We all believe that. Laura Trump, thank you so much.
Scared, shocked, in tears almost, gagged. And Megyn Kelly said, wake the receipts up. She said, you want to see the receipts? Because I got them. Receipts looking like phone numbers. Okay, 911, we have an emergency, child. Megyn Kelly, keep your foot on their necks. Megyn Kelly, sweetie, I am so sorry that this clown would try to play in your face and insult your intelligence as if you weren't going to see through him like he was bathing in Windex. Megyn Kelly, you will always be that girl. Clock it, because she's been saying it for all this time. How dare all these different media personnel cover up for Joe Biden for all this time? Now, let's really get into the specifics of the cancer and all the things that are going on here, because I remember when Laura Loomer posted this back in 2022 and people tried to act like it just didn't happen, or they tried to be like, oh, it was another one of Joe Biden's sudden flubs or his stutter that emerged out of nowhere, maybe had him misspeak. But Joe Biden, lean in. Joe Biden admitted to having cancer in July of 2022. Play the clip.
You had to put on your windshield wipers to get literally the oil slick off the window. That's why I and so damn many other people I grew up have cancer. And why can't, for the longest time, Delaware had the highest cancer rate in the nation.
He literally just said it, that he has cancer. He didn't say this like in the sense that it's past tense. He said this in July of 2022. And remember that date as we really break all this tea down. Remember that date, okay? Because he got up there and he said that. They tried to cover it up, which I don't believe that for 1 second. So his official diagnosis, I have it pulled up here now, Gleason score of 9, grade group of 5 with metastasis to the bone classified as stage 4. Okay. And again, if you don't know what bone metastasis is, and I'm probably going to be saying it wrong if I'm not already saying it wrong now, so don't even clock me, but it occurs when cancer cells from a primary tumor in another part of the body spread to the bones, meaning it is deeply rooted in his bones. Now, prostate cancer, because I'm just going to walk y'all through this because not everybody has the same level of understanding, but I want you to understand what's going on here. Prostate cancer is one of the most common cancers among men, with about 1 in 8 men diagnosed in their lifetime, primarily affecting those over the age of 50. Now, when it comes to aggressiveness, what that Gleason score means, if you have a score of 6 to 10, that measures the prostate cancer's aggressiveness, with higher scores being from 8 to 10. And that indicates that it's a faster growing cancer that may metastasize, as seen in these advanced cases like a stage 4, where it goes to your bones. Now, detection, early detection through PSA tests is very, very critical, which is why a lot of men go and they start getting their prostate exams. Usually, I believe it's over the age of 45 on a common basis, because you definitely want to catch that as quickly as you can, because more often than not, compared to other cancers, it is a cancer that tends to develop a little slower. So this is one that you definitely want to be preventative and very precautious of, and taking those actions in advance, being proactive about. And once you have it, you end up doing treatments like your typical cancer treatments, like you will try to get surgery, get radiation, chemotherapy, hormone therapy, all of these different things to try to make it manageable. Now, the reason that I really want to talk about the treatment part is because what does that do? A lot of people have probably heard of, if you haven't, it's called chemo brain. And what chemo brain is when you go through chemotherapy, you go through this intense radiation, it causes memory problems and it reduces your processing speed. What do we see when we listen to Joe Biden? Somebody who clearly has memory problems, somebody with reduced processing speed. And you guys have heard me say before, take a drink every time you hear an industry I've been in. I have worked in so many different industries, but I worked in like the nursing home world for a while. And we had what was called the East Wing, when you either had dementia or Alzheimer's, or a lot of times going through chemo and you get really bad chemo brain. A lot of the times they would send you over to the East Wing. I would watch, because I worked there all through high school and a little bit of college. So for years, I watched how the residents would go from one side to the other. And I watched that decline and that decay in their mind, like in their capacity to communicate, and just like their motions, and how they just start doing crazy things, like how Joe Biden would go and handshake air. That is something that I would say to the CNAs or to the RNs, hey, this guy over here probably has a couple months before he's on the East Wing. Okay, so I have seen these signs and symptoms before. Okay, Joe Biden has been declining in his cognitive abilities for quite some time. And it's been obvious to everybody. It's these neurotoxic effects that that are likely contributing to this rapid decline that he has had. Now, in general, I asked ChatGPT because I wanted to confirm that, like, when I say that prostate cancer tends to be one that's a little slower, and I want to show you guys this breakdown. Do we have that? Yeah. If you see here, it does explain to you how prostate cancer tends to be a cancer that takes quite a bit more time. So based on Joe Biden's like aggressive prostate cancer, it is likely that with him already having a Gleason score of 9 and this bone metastasis, that it is estimated by any AI platform that's credible that you look at, it is estimated that he has likely had cancer for 3 to 4 years, possibly starting between 2020 and 2022. And in 2020, he wasn't sharp, but he wasn't a box of rocks by then. By 2022, he started really showing some signs. By 2023, I was horrified by the fact that this man was in office. And people made up every excuse in the book to try to explain why he was having this cognitive decline, and trying to say it was Alzheimer's and all this different stuff and dementia, which I'm not ruling it out that it could be. And, people try to say, well, oh, dementia could be any age. Well, the thing is with Alzheimer's and dementia, what a lot of people don't know, and this is just a quick tangent, is that tends to develop 20 years before you show symptoms. And it largely comes from your diet, but that's a conversation for another day. It is actually quite preventative more often than not. But Joe Biden Biden, he seems like somebody that is much more out of it than just having dementia or Alzheimer's. So it makes sense when you look at the facts, when you look at, and again, I have it on the screen for you guys to be able to read it in full for yourself. When you look at the facts here, it is likely that he has had cancer for multiple years. It is extremely unlikely, not saying that it's impossible, but it's extremely unlikely that Joe Biden has developed cancer post-pregnant, or, not funny. It is extremely unlikely that Joe Biden developed cancer post-presidency. Okay, if you look at how prostate cancer develops. So what I'm curious about now is when you talk about the medical care practices that typically are received by president, and let's not forget that he was VP for 8 years. So this man has been in the White House for 12 collective years, and you can't tell me that he hasn't had the most top of the line medical professionals around him all the time. And let's not forget the wank she's married to with her hideous gowns. She's a doctor too. And spending all this time around Dr. Fauci, he's a doctor too. So all these different people are around him. And then you think of the fact that, again, like you have the president and VP who get annual physicals at Walter Reed, including blood tests, heart checks, age-specific screenings like PSAs for men. You're telling me that this White House medical unit, which is 24/7 tailored care for the president, you're telling me that they didn't see the signs and the symptoms that he had cancer afoot? This man, you cannot convince me, didn't already have cancer. Okay? And when you have this, and you know, because there's a reason we have the 25th Amendment. There's a reason that we have it. So what these exams are to do is say, okay, this person is no longer fit to serve. And yet y'all played in our faces. You tried to make us feel like clowns, as if all the signs and the symptoms of his decline weren't there. You even had them hiring their political influencers, their political media personalities, like Harry Sisson, who was up there having the audacity to say this.
It's so crazy to me how everybody just ignores that Joe Biden had a neurological exam this year and they declared him fit to serve. This was done during President Biden's physical earlier this year, and it's public. Like, you can find it on the White House website.
Which
it says
true.
An extremely detailed neurologic exam was, again, reassuring, and that there were no findings which would be consistent with any cerebellar or other central neurological disorders, such as stroke, multiple sclerosis, Parkinson's, or ascending lateral sclerosis, nor are there any signs of cervical myelopathy. No motor weakness was detected. He exhibits no tremor. He demonstrates excellent fine motor dexterity. So he had this exam and they declared him fit to serve. This was done by doctors and neurologists. So I don't know, when you have this extremely detailed report that's very public for everybody to read, and it's going down the list of how President Biden is perfectly fit to serve and that there's no concern about a neurological disorder, maybe we should listen to the doctors and not Republican pundits in the media.
No, listen to the Republican pundits, because clearly the doctors are out here lying in 4K, just like you, Harry. And I'll never slander Harry too much, because Harry is so funny to me. Get your bag, King. Y'all want to call me a grifter so bad, you will never get me to lie in 4K like this man does. But you know what, Harry? I know those bills are paid, the rent is due, and you make sure it is paid timely. Out here lying and pretending like you don't know that Joe Biden was not unfit to serve. And I see y'all clocking me in the live chat too. I did not mean to say that Joe Biden was pregnant. I definitely meant to say that it was post-pregnancy. Ms. Rodriguez has a note. She's an academic doctor, Xavier, not medical. Child, Fair enough. Clock me, cousins. It is a safe space to Wait, Angie, you didn't have to gag me like that. Okay, fair enough. She's an academic doctor, but she's still educated enough to know the signs. She has been through enough schooling to know the signs of when somebody is losing their blood clot, boom clot mind. And Joe Biden has been losing his mind for years. And y'all tried to sit here and play like you didn't see it. Joe Biden, if you're an educational academic doctor, then you should be able to read the signs. You should. And she knew. And shame on her, because when your husband was out there being propped up like a puppet, when you knew he was unwell, you should have encouraged him to sit down. But instead, you got this man falling all over the place, literally. Let's just go down memory lane. Memory lane of what Joe Biden's presidency was like. This man falling. Oh, Lord, have mercy. Not once, not twice, but a third time is crazy. And then acting like he slipped on his pants. At least he got up, though. I'll give him that. Burly. Look, I am honestly, genuinely so surprised that when our enemies saw this video, they didn't just like do 9/11 part 2. Like, jokes aside, like we were so vulnerable. We were so vulnerable. Because how are we going to be in a state as a nation to fight some severe terrorism when our president can't even go up the stairs? Don't make me have to remind you what it was like when he rode a bike. Oh, here go Mr. Rodriguez. Oh, Mr. Rodriguez, you know you're wrong for putting that clip up there. Him falling off that bike was sad. That is an old man. But again, you have Putin out there riding horses like Christopher Reeves. Oh, maybe not like Christopher Reeves, but Christopher Reeves before the fall. Okay, you have him out there like Paul Revere, and our president can't even ride a bike. Can't even ride a bike. Imagine a president who can't ride a bike, but you're supposed to ride our country to freedom. Okay? And then when you talk about, okay, maybe Joe Biden really just loves America so much. Let's see what it's like when Joe Biden tries to explain to us what America is like in a single word.
America is a nation that can be defined in a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him. We traveled 17,000 miles when I was vice president.
Sorry, can we run that back? That sounded like a biblical curse.
In a single word. I was in the foothills of the Himalayas with Xi Jinping, traveling with him.
Shout out to black women, because you got those two black women behind him trying not to key. Even Ketanji Jackson is back there fighting. Look at her face. Oh, Kim. Kamala Harris was gagged. Oh, she was. I am crying. Oh my God. I'm literally over here crying. He's over here speaking in hieroglyphics. He said America in a single word. Come tiki tembo, no so Rambo.
In a single word.
One more time for the culture.
I was in the
This is not funny, y'all. This man is unwell. He is unwell. He was so unwell. But you know what? A lot of people make excuses. Maybe he just wasn't locked in that day. Because, you know, Joe Biden, he prided himself on his mental focus. He was locked in. What does that look like, Joe Biden? Tell us how locked in you are, Joe Biden.
How would you say your mental focus is?
Oh, it's focused.
Oh, it's focused.
I have trouble even saying to myself my own head the number of years. I no more think of myself as being as old as I am than fly.
I'm sorry, if you can't tell, Sleepy Joe, now that he's out of the White House, he has grown on me. He said, I no more think of how old I am than a fly. I'm literally sweating. I can't. But that was really our president. That was like during his I almost said pregnancy again. His presidency. Crazy. And they really tried to sit there and tell us that we were in the wrong for noticing that this man was having a mental decline. Okay? And then when the turntables finally started to turn at the presidential debate. Okay? Do we have any clips from that?
Yes, we do. I am just looking for it through all these funny clips.
Oh my gosh, I am sweating.
But I find that when I pull it up for
But you guys were, I don't know if I sent y'all that one, but you know, at the debate, if you guys remember the debate and how much of a mess that was, it was so clear and abundantly obvious that this man was not ready to be president, to the point that even Trump was on stage feeling bad for him. Trump was on stage looking at him like, what is going on here? And we don't need a clip from the debate because I think I forgot to send that to y'all. But the only person, Joe Biden, watching him at the debate, it made me realize he's the only person in this world that I know who will start a sentence and then finish a completely different sentence. He would start a sentence and end up in a whole different statement. He would be telling you about how the grass is green. He'd be like, the grass is so, this is the number 4. Like, that would be a sentence with him on a presidential debate stage. And then the reaction to the debate was so interesting to me and told me a lot about how fraudulent our media space is. Because first you had Fauci up there lying. Okay, let's clock Fauci, because that's somebody that will whack to the end of time.
My interaction with him was what I described in the book.
Did you see the debate?
I did.
Did anything about that, what you saw, medically alarm you?
You know, I can't say. I think it would be inappropriate to say that, Major, because when you're just looking at someone on a one-shot basis, you just don't know what could happen. Did he have a bad cold? You know, did he take an antihistamine to make him, groggy or what have you? We don't know what went on. And I think it would be unfair and inappropriate to try and diagnose something from just a 90-minute clip.
And people in the live chat that are just now joining, how far along is it? Wait, are y'all talking about his cancer or the pregnancy? Are y'all still roasting me in the comments about this pregnancy? Child, the cousins ain't getting off my neck today. But see how Dr. Fauci's up here lying for 8 pixels? Is this from the debate?
Yeah, I'm pulling this up for the debate. You got to see this. So just turning the audio on, because this is a good one. We can't go without seeing this one. Here we go.
On the total initiative relative to what we can do with more Border Patrol and more asylum officers.
President Trump?
I really don't know what he said at the end of that sentence. I don't think he knows what he said either. Look, we had the safest border in the history of our
the way he's gagged. Trump said, whatever that means. I love my sassy president. He is so locked in and hydrated and focused and in his lane. All the things that Joe Biden has not been since the mid-1900s. So all this to say, then you got Fauci up there lying. Fauci is like, oh, I can't. First he says, Fauci goes, oh, I can't assess the fact that Joe Biden is losing his mind and is senile because it's only one interaction. And then the next breath is like, oh, it's only a 90-minute video of him. 90 minutes? And before cousin Angie clocks me again, this is a doctor that has to do with the medical world. 90 minutes and you can't tell me that this is a man that does not have his full wits about him? Crazy. So, are you running this back?
No, we're just putting it up for B-roll for you. For
okay, context. It's in my ear. It's playing in my ear. But Dr. Fauci sat there and said that in 90 minutes, we can't tell if somebody is losing their mind. Is that not what a medical exam is, sir? You're telling me you can't watch, because I can watch it for 60 seconds and know. But Dr. Fauci wants to sit there and claim this is the person that was supposed to lead us out of a pandemic, and you can't tell me that you can't see the cognitive decline in that man, okay? But he was one of the last soldiers out there lying. He and Harry Sisson were two of the last people out there fighting that fight. But then I knew it was the beginning of all of the downfall of Joe Biden. The second the Time magazine had this iconic cover, panic. Oh, everybody was gagged. Everybody was gagged, because I remember watching the debate and I was just like, where is this going to go? And I was so impressed that Time posted this, and this cover of Joe Biden walking out of the debate and then finally for the first time, it was like years. And I beseech you to go and search the windows of Time of the headlines about Joe Biden when it comes to his health and his cognitive decline. And see how for years and years and years, MSNBC, Politico, CNN, all these different outlets were constantly trying to shift the focus or lie to us about how Joe Biden was presenting himself. And then the second the debate was over and Time put out this iconic cover, boom, overnight shift. Everybody suddenly was noticing it. Everybody suddenly was like, we're doomed. Everybody was like, this was his one chance and he fumbled the bag. What about the last 3 years before that? Like, how did the 3 years before that not make anybody have any concerns about his cognitive decline? Even Politico gagged them. Politico, I remember, had this was truly when I knew that everything was crumbling down for him. He says, this was right after the debate. Dems freak out over Biden's debate performance. Biden is toast. When Politico starts saying it, Politico couldn't stand Trump. When Politico starts gagging Joe Biden like that, you're doomed. You're doomed. And then all these different people, these politicians and these people who wanted to lie to society were saying that Joe Biden should, or the ones who actually switched over, some of them finally started saying maybe Joe Biden should step down. And I will never forget this. Joe Biden tweeted this just days after the debate. He said that he is not leaving the run. Joe Biden said, let me say this as clearly as I can. I'm the sitting president of the United States. I'm the nominee of the Democratic Party. I'm staying in the race. Don't hold your breath, because 2 weeks later, actually, before I even get into that, about a week and a half, if not the 2 weeks later, he got sick. Well, he had to cancel. Joe Biden canceled a bunch of events in Las Vegas, and he ended up having to go to the hospital, which they tried to cover up, but people knew it because they closed down all the streets between where he was and the hospital. And then he went back to, I believe it was Delaware or somewhere, where he had to get medical attention. Okay, so now it's starting to come back to surface. Oh yeah, maybe Joe Biden was severely ill, and that's why he canceled all these appearances on the West Coast in July before he was suddenly kicked out. He was sick. He has been sick for a very long time. Then I remember when he posted this tweet that he was dropping out of the election. I don't believe for 1 second that Joe Biden approved this. I don't believe it for 1 second. This man definitely was kicked out of his candidacy against his will. I remember when the letter was posted. I remember when the tweet was posted. I remember where I was. And I remember thinking, wow, he had just said weeks ago that he was not dropping out. And now suddenly he's being kicked out. And I still do find it weird that they didn't just invoke the 25th Amendment at that point, and that way they could have their first black female president and ride that momentum. But I think that would have required for the left to acknowledge the fact that this man has been sick and unwell for a very long time. They had been gaslighting us up until that point. So they tried to stand on it, they quadrupled down on it, and they didn't want us to know the truth. And I know this man is not okay with the fact that they kicked him out, because when they asked him about it on video, and I've only seen him, I think this is the only time I've really seen him be asked about it point blank, how he feels about getting kicked out. But this quick little clip here.
Why did you drop out, Mr. President? Why did you drop out of the election?
Why did you drop out of the election? He said, ciao. Anyway, so he said, let me get in this forum real quick. Joe Biden basically just called that reporter broke. That was the sassiest I've ever seen Joe Biden. See, why? He said, let me walk away before I curse this man out. You can't tell me that man was not pressed. And the fact that he was completely silent, usually Joe Biden will at least say something like witty or funny or try to be funny, but usually it's cringe and creepy. Usually he would say something before he just walks away from a reporter. But that time he just smiled and walked away. That told me everything I needed to know. Okay, because he's been hanging around black women long enough for me to be able to read his body language. And him just walking away with this, ciao. Anyway, so that told me everything I needed to know. He did not want to drop out. He was dropped out, okay? He's not being silent. He was silenced, in the words of Oprah Winfrey, who also belongs in jail, in my opinion, allegedly. Tea for another day. But then you still have people who are to this day trying to lie. You have James Clyburn, one of the most prolific people in pushing for Joe Biden's propaganda. He was still out there trying to defend the fact that Joe Biden deserves or was fit to run. I think we have that receipt.
Do you think that Joe Biden really would have been able to perform as president all the way through January 2029 when he would be 86?
Hell no.
Yes, I thought that back then. I still think that, but I don't know that. When people ask me, did I know this or did I know the other? And the fact of the matter is, no, I didn't.
Why are you lying?
And that's, you make my point here. So it's not all about age. I've seen people develop Alzheimer's when they're in their 30s and 40s. So it's not
nothing
about
to do
age.
with the
It's
conversation,
about,
mind you.
The ability to do the job. And I never saw anything that allowed me to think that Joe Biden was not able to do the job.
Enough of him bopping his gums, lying. And respectfully, I don't want to hear anything about, oh, he's not too old to do the job from a man who's been in the same position for 40 years. Okay, that man has been in office for James Clyburn, 40 years that man has been in office. I don't want anybody in office that long because you are so out of touch with reality at that point. Okay, and to wrap all this up, cousins, because here's what it comes down to. A few things. One, thoughts and prayers out to Joe Biden. Seriously. I pray that Joe Biden finds a miraculous recovery. And if he doesn't recover, I hope he enjoys out the rest of his time on this earth. And keep it cute in the comments. Don't be doing too much because I'm not going to hell with y'all if you do. Other thing is we were lied to for so long by the media. And this is not me shaming Joe Biden. I am throwing shade at his wife, but this is not me shaming Joe Biden for fighting through his illness. This is me shaming the media for covering it up. This is me shaming all the officials who covered this up and tried to make conservatives feel like we were crazy. Really not even just conservatives. Anybody with common sense tried to make us feel like we were insane for all this time simply because you didn't want to acknowledge how much of a liar that you actually were. And the other thing is that we deserve to know the physical, the mental, and to an extent, the financial conditions of our sitting president. Okay? People are trying to be like, well, what about medical privacy? This is a national security issue. The fact that our president was sick for all this time, the biggest question that's burning in my mind is who was running our country. You can't tell me that this man was going through chemo, going through all this decline, fighting for his life literally, and still the person that was running our country. Who was making all the decisions while Joe Biden was unwell? Okay. And as far as our right to this information, people in the military essentially sign away their bodily autonomy. So it's not unfair that we demand that the commander-in-chief must be much more transparent about his own health. We deserve answers. We deserve truth. And we deserve justice for Joe Biden. To an extent. Thanks for tuning in, cousins, for another episode of Respectfully. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Click the link in the description to subscribe to PragerU.com if you are not enjoying all of PragerU's content, all their educational materials. I promise not everybody on there is as messy as me. In fact, I'm definitely the messiest person on PragerU, so you need to go and see the truly most educational content. Link is in the description. Thank you guys for tuning in, and I will see you on Thursday.